Looks like our friends, the Jehovah's Witnesses, are out and about. Haven't seen them for a while. There's three of them standing in their little spot just next to a building and holding out, I assume they're awake magazines. They just stand there. Nobody really talks to them. But I just might do that. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Do I know you?
We saw you last time talking to our one of our friends.
Yes. Oh, yes. That's right. How are you doing then today?
Not bad.
So three of you out here today, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Well, you got a nice day for it anyway.
Yeah.
You didn't get to our meeting then, or?
Was that the
Memorial, on the 3rd of April.
the memorial?
Yeah.
No, there's another one, isn't there, on Sunday?
There's another one coming on this 12th. It's a special talk.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
There's morning, there's 10 o'clock, there's 1:30.
Right.
Yeah. So two
Oh, okay.
meetings.
Yeah, I might do. I'm a bit shy, but you know.
Yeah,
no,
don't be
just
sure.
come,
I'll
just-
look out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. You all dress so smartly. I'm
No, don't worry about
I'm not
that.
really.
Don't
You
worry
know.
about that. You'll see how
worry
people
about
will
that.
come you. It doesn't matter how you look.
No, it
Oh.
doesn't matter.
Yeah,
how you look.
because
It's-
Jehovah God is not looking,
Yeah.
for the appearance, isn't it?
No.
Yeah.
He's looking what is in your heart.
I
It's
suppose.
the
Yeah,
person that counts, not what they're
Yeah.
wearing.
Okay. Oh yes, I think I spoke to you before, didn't I?
Yeah.
Yes, you did. We was talking for about a quarter of an hour last
Yeah.
week.
Yeah.
No, not last
No,
week.
not
Remember?
last week,
Yeah.
the week before.
That's it. Yeah, that's right. I
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
remember. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah.
So today you've got
Different
Watchtower.
magazine, yeah.
Oh, that's the main one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a
The
different-
Watchtower.
Yeah.
This one about
Yeah. Discipline is
Well,
inside, Brian. It's inside, yeah.
It's discipline inside. I mean, this is what people see most interesting in.
Yeah.
This one.
And the Watchtower is your main organisation,
Awake.
isn't
Like
it?
a journal, yeah.
Yeah, and that comes out of
Yeah.
New York, I think it is, isn't it?
It does, yeah.
That's
well,
the
it's printed
main
here.
office, but we got
Oh, because
main-
I've
the
seen the big
main-
building in New York.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
we
main
got one here.
headquarters. That's
Yeah.
the main headquarters where the governing body are.
Yeah.
But our headquarters are in Middle Hills. That's where the big print is,
Okay.
where they print all these magazines.
Oh, that's not too far, is it? Northwest
no,
London.
it's not.
I'll show you. These are the most widely distributed magazines on earth.
Is it?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll show you the quantity that they're printed in. This one is printed in. See the print in there. This is every month.
Nearly 53.
Yeah, nearly 53
Million.
million in 228 languages. Right?
Wow.
And this Awake is the companion, and that's not far behind. That's nearly 52 million in 101 languages.
Oh, right. Okay. So the people of the governing body, they're pretty keen on these magazines being disseminated, aren't
That's
they?
right.
Right.
We don't only do that.
Yeah, I've got one of those. Yeah.
We do all sorts of books.
Questions,
But
young people's
young
art,
people ask, volumes
young people
1 and
ask.
2.
I've never seen this one
All
before.
sorts of questions. But, yeah. Have you got children?
No.
No.
I think I'm fairly young myself. So perhaps I should have one of those.
Yeah.
Is this about questions that they ask
Yeah,
about God in
young-
general, about JWs
Well,
in general?
about all
or-
sorts of things.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. You see, I mean, am I ready to date? You see?
Yeah.
Secret dating, what's the harm? See, is this person right for me? See, how far is too far? You know? Why stay a virgin?
All right.
You know,
Okay.
because you know the moral standard, the world's morally bankrupt, isn't it? Anything goes today.
Well, what would you say on that? I mean,
all sorts of questions. You
for
know,
somebody who wants to date and have sex and everything, say from, I don't know, 15 onwards.
Well, I mean, you see, the Bible's got a very high moral standard, you know, and
Yeah.
you know, Jehovah God would not be, you know, in the scriptures it says that it outlaws sex before marriage. You shouldn't have sex before you get married, because obviously the originator of marriage is Jehovah God himself.
Yeah.
And it says the marriage union is a very sacred thing in God's eyes, you know, and it's for life.
Yeah.
You know. And then when the command was given to Adam and Eve, wasn't it, in the very beginning, to procreate and have children. Well, that's between, you know, married people. You know, that was to populate the earth, and that's the way that Jehovah expects it to be done today. You know, not. I mean, look at the problems it causes. It causes broken homes. You know, you're getting married couples going out and having flings with people outside the marriage. You know, it causes problems. It breaks families up. The children suffer. You know, venereal disease. You know, look at AIDS. It's all caused by promiscuousness at the end of the day. You know,
well, I think it's caused by irresponsibility, which some people are irresponsible.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But what would you say, though, to someone who said that, you know, the body was made with these sexual desires and urges at a very young age?
Yeah, but they should be kept on. I mean, if they apply Bible principles in their lives and they know that it's displeasing to their Maker, they will keep these feelings under control. The Bible encourages self-control. See, like control of your temper, or you know, all those kind of things. You know, self-control is very important.
It's a bit difficult for a 15-year-old lad, I would think, really.
But you see, the world pressures them into feeling that they've got to do this, you know, but they haven't got to do it.
I think it's their genetics that are pressuring them, really, and their hormones.
You can stay chaste if you make the effort.
But what I don't understand is why God would make you this way.
Well, I mean, obviously...
And then say, don't do it, don't act on it.
Well, he doesn't say don't act on it, but only within the marriage union. When you're ready and you get married, then, okay, then...
Yeah. I think it's true, though, that a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses, they adhere to this when they're young, but then they get married very quickly because obviously they want to have sex.
Well, no, not necessarily. I mean, they just...
and then they marry the wrong person. I've seen it happen.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's many that have sex before marriage and marry the wrong person out in the world, isn't there? It goes both ways, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I do know a Jehovah's Witness family,
causes all sorts of problems.
Yeah, they were just the kids were just so sexually frustrated that the lad married the girl next door, who happened to be a JW as well. Yeah. And they got married and had their fun, and then they were divorced within a year.
Yeah, well, we do advise. Well, we do say that the Bible does say that you should marry only in the Lord. In other words, only marry a fellow witness, because you've got nothing in common otherwise with the person you marry. Their views on things.
But as your witnesses, wouldn't it be better to at least include others, because then you would be witnessing all the more, wouldn't you?
Well, yeah, but not if it means flouting Bible standards, or not adhering to Bible standards. I mean, a lot of people think that the Bible standards are restrictive, and they are, but only for our own good. And as I said already, many kids, many youngsters, that are promiscuous, they're deep down inside, they get very unhappy. Their life, they've had different partners, and and it all brings all sorts of problems.
Wouldn't you just say they're finding out what type of person they want to be with? Like in any other part of life, they're experimenting.
But surely there's other ways they can find that out without having sex.
Well, I mean, in some countries like Sweden and Denmark, they're very open about sex, and in Holland, and so open, in fact, that the teenage birth rate is very low, like compared to England, where everyone's quite repressed. In fact, it seems the more repressed you are about it, the more the teenage birth rate goes up.
But the way we look at it, the way we see it is that Jehovah, he lays the direction in his word, the Bible. He gives it, he says what's right and wrong. His moral standards are very important to us, and we believe in obedience to His commandments. Commandments.
Do you ever personally get frustrated with all the do's and don'ts?
No,
Because you've got the Bible and you've got the Watchtower's own, you know.
I have a bit of a. I've got a struggle
Rules.
with my temperament.
Yeah.
That's a bit of a struggle.
You seem very calm to me.
Well, yeah, but until things go wrong, and then I can get a bit irate. So that's something I've got to work on. But I get frustrated with that.
Yeah.
Because it's very. If you're working at home and you hit your thumb with a hammer, and, you don't say, "Oh, dearie me, I've just hit my thumb with a hammer."
Yeah.
Do you? I mean, the immediate
Well, that's just being
reaction-
human, isn't it?
Yeah,
You
of
wanted,
course it
wanted
is.
to scream
Yeah,
and shout
yeah.
and maybe swear as well.
But even then, you see, we're told to count to 10 and try to control ourselves. It's difficult.
Again, it seems like God has made you a certain way, and then told you, you can't be that way.
Yeah.
That's very frustrating.
Yeah. Well,
Do you know what I mean? That's what I struggle
I
with.
know exactly what you mean. Yeah. But there's a lot of things that seem very difficult to us, isn't there? But if you respect God's standards, then you're going to try to be obedient.
How do you know they're not human standards, though? I mean,
no, they're not, because obviously all Scripture is inspired of God. 2 Timothy 3:16. All Scripture is inspired of God, although it was written by a man in the Bible.
yeah.
It was God's Spirit that inspired these men to write down His thoughts. So you're not reading man's thoughts, you're reading God's thoughts. Because out of the 40 different Bible writers, not one of those Bible writers claims to be the author. Because Jehovah God's the author. He's the author of the Bible. And it was, when you think that it was written over a period of 1,600 years, all of those men living at different time periods, and yet it's completely harmonious all the way through. Now that wouldn't be possible if it was just a book written by men. It just would not ever
Are you sure it's completely harmonious?
Absolutely, yeah, positive. Yeah, absolutely positive. And that's proved by Bible prophecy.
Well, you agree that the God of the Old Testament is quite an angry, vengeful God, and then
No,
you have
he's not.
Jesus, who's like turn the other cheek and meek and mild, and yet they're supposed to be one and the same, aren't they?
Well, like they are. But I mean, when you talk about anger, you're talking about righteous indignation. Now, you take for example, what do you call them? There's one a particular group of people, not.
You don't mean the Amalekites, do you?
Yeah, it could be the Amalekites, but I'm thinking of the others, the Assyrians.
Yeah.
They were very, very cruel. And archaeologists sift, because they used to sacrifice to their false gods and burn their children to these false gods. And archaeologists have sifted through the remains of ancient Assyria, Assyrian temples, and all that's where these things used to go on. And even they say that it's a wonder God didn't destroy them before He did.
Yeah.
They were wicked. Now they're the sort but He always warns and gives people a chance to turn around. If people turn around, it's like the story of Jonah. When Jonah was swallowed by that fish and lived in the belly of the fish for 4 days and 4 nights. The Ninevites turned around and repented because he ran away, first of all, from the assignment, because they were pretty cruel as well, and he didn't fancy telling them. I mean, I think he had to say in a certain amount of time, Nineveh's going to be destroyed. Jehovah's going to destroy Nineveh.
This wasn't God's voice speaking from the sky. It was through a person.
Well, I think it was. He had to proclaim Jehovah's message that he was going to destroy Nineveh.
Maybe that's why some people ignored it, because they thought this is just a bloke speaking.
Well, whether that's the case or not, but Well, I mean, we're saying that this system's going to end, but I mean, they could look at us and say the same thing, couldn't they? They could say, well, it's that Jehovah's Witnesses, they're telling us that the system's going to end. How do we know they're right? Well, we know we're right because the Bible tells us we're right. You know, because the work we're doing is a judgmental message. You see, we're saying that this system, Jehovah, because of its immorality and its all the other problems, Jehovah's going to destroy it. He's going to
And would you
wipe
say
this system out.
what we were saying before
usher in
about
a new one.
sexual immorality
Yes, that's right.
is
That's
at the
part
top of that
re-
list, would you
part of the
say?
reason he's going to do it. Well, it's only one of the reasons. I mean, when you look at the suffering in the world, you know, people starving. It's obvious that human governments cannot do things properly. You know, they spend billions on nuclear armaments, and then you've got a third of the world population starving to death because they haven't got enough food to eat. And they're spending billions on nuclear armaments.
Yeah.
You know, where's the justification in that?
So does the Watchtower in New York, do they give a lot of money to charity and help the poor?
Well, we are a charity.
Yeah.
We're registered as a charity. We don't make money. That's why we give the magazines. Everything we give is free, absolutely free. We don't charge for our literature. You know, it's absolutely free.
So
for
do
charity.
JWs like yourself, do you
This
go
all
out
comes from
and
us.
feed the homeless and help the
Well,
poor?
no, but we're not against giving money to a charity, but that's not the answer to the world's problems. The answer to the world's problems is God's kingdom. That's the answer. God's kingdom. That you in the new system, when Jehovah wipes this system away and he brings us in the new one, and we're all living under that kingdom, there won't be any need for charities. There won't be any kids starving to death. There won't be any wars. There won't be any fanatics blowing people up like these, these whatever you call them in this.
But a theoretical
Muslim
question,
extremists.
if I may,
Yeah.
a theoretical question. Just say this entire town was destroyed by a flood, right? But the Kingdom Hall was fine, which maybe it would be.
Yeah.
Now, there are people still alive.
Yeah.
They're starving. They're hungry.
Yeah. Well, of course.
You
we
guys
go
would
and
go
help
out and you'd help them.
them. Well, that's right. Because
Or
if
would you just help witnesses?
No, we wouldn't.
Because that's something people will say.
Well, no, we
That they
don't.
just help other witnesses.
No, we don't. Because I'll tell you now how that's a fact. Because, do you know, when you get these natural disasters, like the natural disaster in Thailand a little while ago, where you got that massive wave, that tsunami.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
You'll always find that when you get these natural disasters, whether it's earthquakes or tsunamis or whatever, the first people helping people are witnesses, and that's a known fact. The first ones there are Jehovah's Witnesses, helping not only their own but other people.
Right.
So we're there when
Okay.
you know,
So
when
maybe I
we
got that
need
wrong because I heard that JWs only help other JWs in any
Well,
situation.
never listen, because some of these people, according to some people, we don't believe in Jesus. According to some people, which is absolute nonsense. You know, so always get it from the horse's mouth.
Yeah, I am. That's why I like to talk to you.
Yeah, don't
So I
listen
want-
to other people,
because you hear all
a
sorts
lot
of
of them
things,
are very biased against us, and they don't understand what we believe. They hear it from other people, because you know what it's like. Word of mouth, don't you? You know,
Yeah.
one story's told here, and by the time it gets to the other end of the
Well,
town,
when I was brought up Baptist, and I was always
Yeah.
told you had your own Bible, which was totally rewritten differently.
No, absolute nonsense. Again, a Bible, we'll use anybody's Bible. I'll use the King James Version, I'll use the Bible in Living English, we'll use any Bible you like. A Bible is a Bible. Our Bible, the only way our Bible differs, in actual fact, our Bible is the closest to the original translation that you'll ever get, and our society makes certain of that.
So you go back to the original Greek and Hebrew.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay.
And another thing that's unique about our Bible is the fact that we use Jehovah's name all the way through it.
Yes, you do. Yeah.
Because Jesus Christ was a Jehovah's Witness. Because he said, if you look at John 17, I think it is.
Yeah.
It said, "I have made your name known and will make it known." So Jesus made the name known, and also all the first century Christians made the name known, so they were all Jehovah's Witnesses.
I heard the word Jesus actually means Jehovah saves. Is that right? Or is that? Am I hearing wrong?
Yeah, I think that's Jesus' name. I think it's.
I don't know, it's Savior or something. It's just something I saw on,
I could find
on
out.
the internet or something.
Yeah, I could find out for you. But the name Jehovah means he causes to become. He causes to become. So in other words, he can become whatever is needed to accomplish his purpose, and he's doing that all the time. He'll do it. His purpose will not fail. What he says will absolutely come true. He's got the power to do it. He can do anything he wants. You know, at any time he wants, in any way he wants, because he's all powerful. You know, I mean, we're fulfilling a Bible prophecy. I mean, it said that Matthew 24:14, this good news of the kingdom will be preached in all the inhabitants of earth for a witness to all the nations, and then the end will come. This good news of the kingdom will be preached.
Which you're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we're well known for. We've got the whole world mapped out. The whole world is mapped out by.
Are there JWs in like Iran? And
yes,
Iraq?
all over
right,
the place.
Okay.
There's no way where you can go where you can get away from us. We had a cartoon in one of our.
I wouldn't like to knock on a door in Iran.
Yeah, well, neither would I. But we had a cartoon where there was these two Australians right out in the middle of the outback.
Yeah.
And there was these two witnesses walking towards them with the watchtower and the awake.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And the caption underneath, I think, was it. You can't get away from these witnesses, or something like that. You know. Well, yeah, because we're everywhere. We go to the most. Some of our pioneers and our sort of special pioneers and missionaries, they go out into the middle of absolutely nowhere, the most remote places you can think of, to try to reach people with the truth.
Is this something you want to do, or
well, I mean,
the Watchtower commands you to do?
Well, no, it's something. Well, if once you know the truth, you want to pass it on to others.
Yeah.
I mean, if you knew somebody was going to plant a bomb in the high street tonight and blow half of Watford up, wouldn't you go and warn the people?
I would hope so.
Well, you see, if we know that this system's going to go down, and we know that Jehovah doesn't want to execute people, he wants everybody to be a survivor.
Yeah.
And so he's having his word about the kingdom.
It's taken a while, isn't it? 2,000 years before he's coming back, at least.
Well, the truth was lost for a few years, because I mean, you're talking about in the first century that they were the command was given to to preach to people in that particular area, but then it said it would be extended earthwide. Well, that was obviously pointing forward to our time.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be done on a global scale until much later. You see.
Yeah.
And then eventually, because if you look at the first century, look at the early Christian congregations in Jerusalem in the first century and around that area, they were growing.
Yeah.
But then Paul spoke about an apostasy where people would come out, start drawing away from the true Christian teachings of the Bible.
You know, that's what the Mormons tell me as well. There was an
Yeah.
apostasy, and then their prophet Joseph Smith restored it all. But they're completely convinced of that.
They're completely convinced. But are they preaching to people about the kingdom and on a worldwide scale? No, they're not.
I think
very
they are.
New.
Those
And the
missionary
book-
kids, they're sent everywhere.
Yeah, but this book is. I don't know how old this book they're supposed to go by.
But the Mormon are mid-1800s.
Something like that. The Bible is 3,500 years old. That's the difference, and everything it predicts comes true. Absolutely everything. You know.
9/11?
Well, that comes under the category of critical times hard to deal with.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're not saying that the Bible says that features 9/11 or anything like that, but it does talk about wars and reports of wars.
Oh.
Well, that's a war. Terrorism
So
is a
not
war.
like cancer and AIDS and...
Well, that comes under pestilences.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, pestilence, earthquakes. wars, pestilence, earthquakes, increasing of lawlessness, love of the greater number cooling off. But it would all, not only, I mean, we've always had earthquakes, we've always had wars, but not on the scale of what? Not on the scale that they are now. And the fact is that it's not only the fact that these things would take place, it's that they would be all running together, you see, at the same time. And they know now that there's been more major earthquakes since 1914 than there ever was in all the thousands of years prior to it.
Okay.
Yeah?
So 1914 is a very important date, isn't it?
A very important date. Yeah. 1914 was the start of the last days of this system of things according to the Bible. And Jehovah's Witnesses were pointing forward to that date, quarter of a century before 1914. They were saying, watch out for that year, something's going to happen. They didn't know what it was, but they said something's going to happen in 1914, watch out for it. They knew that prophecy was a prophecy that spanned 2,520 years, from 607 BCE to 1914. That 1914 would be the termination, or the end of that prophecy, that time period.
Do you mean World War I or something else?
Yes, that's right. We didn't know it was going to be a war, but it was significant that it was, because Jesus said it was one of the main features of his prophecy, warfare, global warfare, not just little.
Don't you also believe that
conflicts.
Jesus came back on 1914?
No, we believe that he took kingly power in 1914 up in the heavens.
Oh, so he
took
did.
Kingly power.
Something did happen.
Yes,
but
that's right.
Nothing we could see.
Nothing we could see. That's right. Kingly power. He took kingly power, but his kingly, but the kingdom of which he is obviously king designate has not actually taken control of the earth yet. It will do in the very near future, but we don't know when that will be. But we know it must be very.
So presumably the people born around about that time, it has to happen within their lifetime, which means they're pretty old now, isn't that right?
Yeah, that's right. But
a few are probably still around, but not for long.
Yes, but there's a generation that Jesus was talking about. You see, but we've had a slight adjustment, adjustment on that. We used to think that it applied to people that were born in 1914 would also see the end of this system of things, but it doesn't actually work that way. I mean, there'll still be. We still know that there will. I don't want to use expressions that are alien to you. You see, there's two. Do you remember Jesus referred to his disciples as sheep?
Yeah.
Remember the expression sheep? Well, there's two. He spoke about two flocks. There's a large flock. If you look in Revelation, it talks about a great crowd that no man was able to number, out of all tribes and peoples and tongues and nations. But then there's also a little flock. Well, they are the ones that Jesus took into this new covenant.
Yeah.
Right. All of the first century Christians were of that little flock. Right? The ones that have got that heavenly hope. Right, they're going to make up that government upstairs, 144,000. But the other sheep that Jesus spoke about, they are the great multitude that have been identified, which is the majority of Jehovah's Witnesses.
So how do you know who is part of the 144,000? Who were the other people?
Well, we know because we know. Well, how do they know? That's more to the point. How do they know? Well, we were just discussing that recently in one of our Watchtower studies. They're anointed with God's Spirit, and He makes it clear to them through His Spirit that they are that class. I mean, if you was to say to me, am I going to be a ruler in the kingdom? I would say no, I'm not, and I don't want to be.
But you've met people who know.
Yes, I've met those. We used to have one in Watford congregation.
Here in this town. Oh, right.
Yes,
okay.
that was anointed, and he knew. I mean, if you was to say to him, "Wouldn't you like to live on the earth?" He'd say, "Oh no, I can't wait to get They know.
How do you know it's not just
They're
wishful thinking on their behalf?
No, it's not. They're just as convinced that. Well, you see, Jehovah takes it away from them. He takes it the feeling that to live on the earth, because I mean that's our natural desire to live on the earth. That's where I want to live. That's how I know that I'm not one of those 144,000.
You prefer Earth to the paradise?
Yes, absolutely. Well, it will be a paradise Earth, and that's where I want to live. You see, because that's Jehovah's original purpose, to have a paradise Earth. See, that's what Adam and Eve lost. That's why Jesus came to the earth, to give himself a ransom in exchange and buy back what Adam lost. So eventually this earth will be a paradise, but the only difference is we'll have that kingdom ruling over us, which we wouldn't have needed if Adam and Eve had remained faithful.
Okay, so when this, as you say, this system ends, I mean the Baptists and all of them, they believe in the rapture and they'll be taken up. Do you believe that all the Jehovah's Witnesses will be taken away, or will you be still here to continue witnessing?
A lot of them that have died are there now. Okay. But the ones that remain on the earth now, see, when they die, they go straight up. See, straight up to join Jesus in that kingdom. But there'll still be a lot of those around when the end of this system comes. There's only a few thousand of them left. Yeah. So it's got to be close.
But there'll be lots of rubble everywhere, and so.
Well, we don't. There's a lot of things we don't know. We'll have to wait and see. The Bible's doesn't give us explicit details.
Presumably, anybody who's in, as you call it, the truth, will then have to help anyone who's been affected by the end of the world.
There'll only be survivors. The only ones, without meaning to sound, what's the word? Conceited, if you like, if that's the word. You see, Jehovah is going to save people that are on his side of the issue, right? Yeah. The universal issue of right from sovereignty. He has the right to say to people what is wrong, what is right, right, and who is going to say through Armageddon into that righteous new system. If people are stubborn, you see, and they say, well, I'm not interested, I don't want to know, then the alternative applies. He's not going to have people that are going to disrupt paradise. Yeah. You see, they'll have to go.
Is he going to be visible when he comes back? Does that make it far easier to believe in someone, into deity, if you can see it?
It does talk about Jesus coming back as an executioner, because that's the way he's not this little baby as Christians.
As an executioner, did you say?
Yes, Jesus will be, an executioner next time.
Doesn't sound very loving.
Well, have you heard of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse?
Oh yes. Yeah.
Well, there's 4 altogether. There's death.
Pestilence.
There's the grave and pestilence, and the one that on the white horse that carries on war in righteousness, right? Carries on war in righteousness. So he acts on his Father's behalf and eliminates the world of all Jehovah's enemies. Right. So if you're an enemy, Jehovah's a loving God, and that's why he's giving people absolutely every chance. Okay. But I mean, He's got to get rid of people that don't want to do things his way. He's got an absolute right. He gave you life in the first place,
and made us quite faulty, and then seemed to punish us for it.
He didn't do that. Adam and Eve did that. We were perfect, and they were perfect. So when he said to Adam or Eve in the first instance, he said, you can eat of any tree in the garden or any of the food in the garden to your satisfaction. Yeah. But there was one prohibition. There was a tree in the middle of the garden.
Tree of life, yeah.
The tree of life. Now, the Garden of Eden, by the way, was about the size of Wales. That's how big it was. And the only prohibition he gave her, right? Yeah. And Adam and Eve was not to eat of one tree in the middle of the garden. And Satan managed to make them think that they would be better off doing things their way, deciding for themselves what's right, what's wrong.
So why did he put the tree there?
Well, because it was
a setup, wasn't it?
Well, no, it wasn't a setup.
He wanted to see if they would take it.
Well, he wanted.
He knew that they would take
well,
it.
You could say it was a test of obedience. He wanted to know whether they really appreciated what he'd given them.
Yeah, but he knew the outcome anyway, and he knows everything.
No, he didn't know. Some things he didn't see. He didn't know the outcome. He didn't know. Many people say that. He must have known that they were going to take from it. There's some things that, although he can see into the future and he can read people's thoughts, there's things he's given people free will, and there's certain things that he doesn't choose to see. He hasn't got us all under a microscope, or a great big magnifying glass looking at all our imperfections and everything else.
Well, I suppose if he's omnipotent, he can choose not to be at any.
Right.
He can do that as well.
That's right. He can do that as well. He gave them free will, and he was hoping that they would be obedient. But because he said to Adam, he said, "What have you done? Have you eaten from the tree that I told you not to eat from?" See, so it was a question, have you taken from the tree?
And it was the tree of the knowledge of good and evil.
bad,
So
right.
Presumably, by eating it, he would understand what good and evil is. Isn't that
well, they would be able.
good attribute to have?
Well, they would be able to. They would be able to decide what was good and what was bad according to them. Whereas really, the only one that's got the right to say what's good and bad or right and wrong is our Maker. See, he has the right. You see, and if you see, and you can. I mean, if you look around the world today, it's full of people that say, "Well, I'm not bothered about the Bible. I do what I want to do." Okay, thanks very much. Right?
Yeah.
And slam the door in your face. Not very often, but most people are very polite about it. Well, no, I'm not really interested, thanks very much. All right, okay, bye-bye. And off you go. But they've made their choice. Some people do change, mind you, but it's a choice, you see. But it's full of people that want to do what they want to do. And look at the state of the world. See, they're not. If everybody was living according to Bible standards, right, the world wouldn't be in the state it's in. So it's proof of the pudding, really.
I think the world is not as bad as JW see it. Really, I mean, we see awful things on the news, but there always has been awful things, and it's a big world, But look, this is a very organized town, and people are going to work and being good to their kids and
that's
everything.
right. But we only see a little bit of it. Jehovah sees a lot more than we see. And things definitely are worse now than they were. Even in my young day, I'm only 71, right? And this is a totally different world to the one I grew up in. I tell you, absolutely, totally different.
But you must have seen World War II, did you?
I was born during World War II.
Yeah.
I was born.
But we haven't had anything like that since.
No. No, but I mean, you could say that terrorism is a world war in itself, because it's everywhere.
Not quite on the scale of World War II.
No, that's right.
So maybe we are getting better.
Well, we're not getting better. We're definitely not.
Well, I don't want to take up much more of your time, but I would love to, if I may, to have that, because...
do you want volume 1 as well?
Well, if you're sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Questions on people ask, volume 1 and 2, right. All right, I can show my nephew this.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, because it's designed for youngsters. But I mean, we can all learn lessons from it, no matter how old we are.
Yeah. I always like to see new perspectives on things. Yeah. So.
But do try to get to our meeting. Do try to get to this special talk, because it's about paradise, I think. Jehovah bringing back.
What day is it?
It's the 12th, that special talk.
Yeah, 12. Yeah.
The
12th.
12th.
Sunday.
That's Sunday, this Sunday. It's
Okay.
at 1:30.
Do you often get strangers like me coming in and sitting in the back or whatever?
Yeah. Don't feel that you're going to be like a carrot and a bunch of bananas, going to stick out a mouth. I took my Bible study. I'm studying the Bible with a man, and I took him to the memorial on last Sunday. And he said, do you know what he said to me? He said, "Aren't the people friendly?" See, so
you get that in most
notice
churches.
it. Well, I don't know. I've been to churches,
Well, no, you're right, not all of them. No, I've been to a few, so...
But we're renowned. We're well known for the love that we have amongst ourselves. and people do notice that when they walk into a kingdom hall, you know. And you will no doubt notice it yourself. You know.
Yeah.
But I'll look out for it.
All right.
If you can make it.
Yeah. All right. Thank you
It's
for
a
your
special
answering
tour.
my questions. That's really interesting.